The other day, an Orland Park police officer pulled up to the front of the church from the back of the church in his car. And I went out to meet him, and I was surprised to see it was now a not-so-young man named Sean. And he and my son Aaron used to play together back in the old days on Huntington Court in Orland Park. And Sean is now 47 years old. He's been a cop for like 25 years. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Every once in a while I drive by and I drive out to the back because I feel safe here." But I said, "You're the ones that keep us safe." He said, "Yeah, but when I come here and drive out back, and then I see you, and I see the church, and I think about the history, I feel safe here. And so I'm going to keep coming back." And I said, "I hope so." And I keep thinking of those words, I feel safe. I know in life I want to be safe every day. I want to be safe to be able to be myself. I want to be safe and be able to fail once in a while and have the chance to have another opportunity. I want to be spiritually safe, so that if I have my doubts or I feel like my spirit is getting wrinkled, I have a place where I don't have to be perfect, where I can just be who I am. I've always wanted this place, this church, to be safe for you, so that when you're on our property or walk in the door on a Sunday morning or a Thursday night, that you can be yourself. Imperfect, human, just be who you are. And I think of the psalm that Ken read this morning, and most of the psalms were written when the Jewish people were in captivity. They were away from their temple and they didn't feel safe. And so they say this: "From the depths of my despair, Lord, I call unto you. Hear my cry. Listen to my call. Lord, I trust in you. I want to be safe." I think we all spend a little time in captivity, don't we? Sometimes we can be a prisoner of our own fears. We can be a prisoner of grief over a loved one. That sometimes we feel like we're captives and we just want to be set free to be who we are. And the gospel today, on the surface, is the story about raising Lazarus from the dead. You know, Jesus says in so many words, "Lazarus, come out. Get out of that tomb, unbind yourselves. I want to set you free." And that gospel story is really not just a story about Lazarus. It's a story about you and me. It's easy to spend time in the tomb. It's easy to hide. Sometimes we pretend. Sometimes we spend way too much time in the darkness. And Jesus says, "Those who believe in me will live and never die." Well, hopefully we will never die. This part may die, but that intangible something that makes us us, that's inside our heart and soul, that never has to die. Yesterday I spent some time at a friend's house. He's become a friend. And he just entered a stage of life called palliative care, which means you're kind of nearing the finish line. And so I went to his house, and we talked about his life, about his death, and about his funeral. It's pretty powerful when you sit with somebody who is nearing the finish line, and they have the grace and the guts to talk about the end. It was a very powerful moment. And we talked. And you know, in life, we gather lots of stuff and maybe get a few awards and all that kind of thing, but when we die, we can't take that with us. The most important thing is not how much stuff we have, it's about what we leave behind. And I always ask myself the question sometimes, if I left this earth today or tomorrow, what would I leave behind? And the stuff that we leave behind is the most powerful stuff in the world. I was thinking about a funeral I had the other day. a lady who was only 48 years old, and I was thinking about what she left behind. And even though her life was too short, she leaves a lot behind that'll never go away. I think of those two kids who were age 12 and 14, and they lost their mom, and she was a single mom. And what did she leave behind? The two most precious things in the world, her two daughters. This is an incredibly spiritual time of the year. Jesus somehow was able to take the darkness and turn it into light. Good Friday is really kind of a dark day, if you think about what it was like for them. Jesus on the cross, his mom at the foot of the cross, saying goodbye, because to them it was the end. But then something happened. Mary went to the tomb on Easter Sunday morning, and Jesus was not there. And she goes into the garden, and she thinks she sees the gardener, and she said, "What have you done with my Lord?" And the gardener says, "He is no longer here. He has risen." And then she discovers that the gardener is Jesus. Didn't look the same, but somehow spiritually, Jesus never died. If I've learned one thing in my many years as a minister here, and you can probably tell I haven't learned a lot, I realize life does not make sense at times. Life is not fair at times. Life can be cruel at times. Life can also be incredibly majestic. This morning, coming to church, I walked out the front door, and I saw the sunrise, I saw the clouds and the sun, and it was almost like the clouds and the sun were battling to see who would come first. And that's kind of the way life is. The clouds and the sun battling, and what do we see? And where is the power? Well, you know, in life, you and I, we're called to be the gardener. We are called to embody the light that Jesus brings into the world. From Mississippi to Ukraine, those little kids being baptized, a young mom leaving behind her daughters, a firefighter who is nearing the finish line. Wherever we see somebody spending too much time in the darkness, we are called to be the light, reminding us that we are the gardener. And coloring the world with kindness does make a difference. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. I believe in God, the Father Almighty,